The snow continued to fall, quietly blanketing the upscale neighborhood of Eden Prairie. Beverly Henderson stood at her large bay window with her usual warm coffee in hand, gazing out at the garden. The morning sunlight made the snowflakes sparkle, covering the ground in white like a dusting of sugar. This moment was her favorite time of day. "Grandma! Look!" Tommy's energetic voice pierced through the frigid morning air from the garden. The 5-year-old was trying to make a snowman with his small hands. Beverly couldn't help but smile at the sight of him skillfully rolling snow with his red-mittened hands. Standing there in the pristine white snow, Tommy looked like a winter fairy. Drawing from her 30 years of experience as an elementary school counselor, watching countless children, Beverly carefully observed Tommy's every movement. Behind his energetic and cheerful personality, she noticed the occasional glimpse of sensitivity. It reminded her of his mother, Jennifer. The way he furrowed his brow when deep in thought was particularly identical. Beverly took a sip of her warm coffee. The rich aroma of Hawaiian kona carried her memories back to her retirement 2 years ago. The handmade plaque reading, "Best Counselor," from her students still adorned her study wall. Her ability to read children's emotional nuances remained her pride. "Tommy, it's time for breakfast. Come wash your hands." "Okay. But just a little longer." "No, we can't risk triggering your asthma." As she welcomed her snow-covered grandson inside, Beverly thought about her husband, William. A respected figure who taught English at the local high school for 30 years and now served as a church board member. Their 40-year marriage appeared ideal to others. Their Sunday church attendance symbolized the model family, drawing envious glances from the community. Their son Mark worked as a manager at a local IT company, and his wife Jennifer was an elementary school teacher. Celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary, they seemed like a perfectly happy couple. They appeared to live peacefully in their suburban home. The whole family enjoyed weekend barbecues and vacation camping trips. Their days resembled a perfect family portrait. But lately, concerning signs had emerged. First, there were changes in Tommy's behavior. "Mommy was crying again last night." When Tommy suddenly said this one day, a small shadow fell across Beverly's heart. A grown-up worry had begun to inhabit her grandson's innocent eyes. "Grandma, don't tell Daddy." Her grandson had started whispering such words with a serious expression. His comments about worrying for his mother had definitely increased. Sometimes, she'd hear him murmur, "I have to protect Mommy." These were heavy words for a 5-year-old. Jennifer's behavior had also changed. She seemed particularly tense around William and had started avoiding family gatherings. Her once active participation in family discussions had diminished significantly. She complained of poor health more frequently, and Beverly hadn't missed the vitality draining from her eyes. When asked, "Are you feeling unwell?" Jennifer would smile and say, "I'm just a little tired." However, Beverly's counselor instincts told her these smiles weren't genuine. William's behavior had also become concerning. His excessive attention to Jennifer. His attitude of trying to control family gatherings like a conductor. "Jennifer, why don't you rest more? I'll take care of everything." Such conversations had become frequent. Though the words seemed kind on the surface, they carried an undercurrent of coercion. Jennifer would always just look down silently at such times. Beverly's years of counseling experience were setting off alarm bells. Something serious lurked beneath the surface calm. Some invisible dynamic was at work within this family. However, at that time, Beverly couldn't have imagined that this peaceful daily life would soon transform into a horrifying tragedy. Outside, the continuing snowfall quietly erased the colors from the ground, as if forecasting the events to come. The cold wave that hit Minnesota in February had frozen the entire town. Temperatures had plunged well below freezing, transforming the outside world into a realm of snow and ice. The roads were frozen, and street trees gleamed like ice sculptures. The weather forecast predicted this cold wave would continue throughout the week. First thing in the morning, Beverly checked Tommy's asthma medication as usual. Having everything ready, including the inhaler, for when he visited her house was part of her daily routine. Drawing from her experience as a former counselor, she took meticulous care of her grandson's health. That morning, Beverly's heart nearly stopped at a sudden phone call. "It's terrible. Tommy's having an attack." Jennifer's panicked voice rang through the receiver. Though Tommy, who had asthma, had experienced attacks before, this time was different. There was an unprecedented urgency in her tone. "What about the oxygen inhaler? Isn't his usual medication working?" "It's not working. His face is turning blue, his breathing, please, come quickly." Jennifer's voice, though on the verge of tears, seemed somehow restrained, as if afraid of being overheard. "I'm coming right now." "What about the ambulance?" "Well, William is already here." Mid-sentence, William's voice came through the receiver. "I'll take him to the hospital, so don't worry." At that voice suddenly interrupting from behind, Jennifer's breathing seemed to stop for a moment. William continued on the other end, "I'll drive him to Mayo Clinic. I've already contacted Dr. Peterson. Bev, you stay at home." William's voice carried an unusual forceful tone. Tommy's labored coughing could be heard. But it was different from his usual attacks. The sound was weak, as if he were in a daze. "Grandma." At her grandson's faint voice, Beverly instinctively called out Tommy's name. But William's voice cut her off. "Don't worry. It's the best medical facility. Dr. Peterson is standing by." With that, William hung up. Beverly couldn't suppress the anxiety spreading through her chest. A sense of urgency enveloped her, as if she were missing something crucial. Several hours later, Beverly's cell phone rang while she was preparing hot tea in the kitchen. "Bev. Tommy is gone." William's call was brief and curt. His voice was mechanical, devoid of any emotion. "We did everything we could, but it was too late. Dr. Peterson examined him too, respiratory arrest due to an asthma attack. Death at Mayo Clinic." When she heard those words, it felt as if the world had stopped. Even the snow dancing outside the window appeared frozen in place. The cup she was holding fell to the floor, its shattering sound seeming distant. "That can't be true. He was fine just yesterday, if it had been our usual hospital." Beverly's voice trembled. She couldn't accept the reality that the boy who had been building a snowman in the garden was gone. "Anyway, come to the hospital right now." The call ended abruptly. Upon arriving at the hospital, Mark was already there, collapsed on the floor, sobbing. Why my son?" Beverly could only silently stroke his back as he repeated these words. Jennifer stood frozen, as if petrified. Her appearance was less that of a mother devastated by deep sorrow and more like something else, like a hostage trembling in fear. Her hands were tightly clenched, fingernails visibly digging into her palms. Her eyes were vacant, as if her soul had departed. The funeral preparations proceeded with unusual speed. "Leave everything to me." William's voice carried an undertone of urgency. The death certificate was issued by his old friend, Dr. James Peterson. The need for an autopsy was dismissed, and everything proceeded without a hitch. It was as if everything had been arranged in advance. "I want to proceed with cremation as soon as possible. I don't want to prolong the family's suffering." As William repeated these words, Beverly's sense of unease only grew stronger. Why was there such a rush? Why refuse a detailed examination? And above all, why was Jennifer so terrified? The sound of the blizzard echoed like an ominous portent. Beverly had no way of knowing that an even deeper darkness lurked within this grief. And there was little time left before the true nature of that darkness would be revealed. Heavy snow fell silently in the Eden Prairie Funeral Home parking lot. The forecast predicted no end to the snowfall tonight. As temperatures continued to drop, a thin layer of ice had begun forming on car windshields. Beverly sighed deeply in her car. The dashboard clock showed 3 p.m. These were the final moments of farewell. Just a few minutes remained before Tommy's small body would be placed in the black hearse. "Let's go," Beverly whispered to herself as she slowly opened the door. The cold wind stung her cheeks. Several cars were already parked in the lot, but no people were visible. Everyone must have already entered the funeral home. That's when she noticed the black hearse. The vehicle stood like an ominous shadow in the shelter of the building. Beverly stopped in her tracks. Something was wrong. Something was off. Her 30 years of counseling experience sent warning signals throughout her body. "Grandma, help me. I'm scared." A faint voice carried on the wind. Beverly froze. That voice. It can't be. With trembling legs, she approached the hearse. The voice was definitely his. Tommy's voice. But that should be impossible. "Tommy." The moment she whispered, she heard the voice again. Cold. "Grandma, help." Beverly's hand touched the black body of the hearse. The cold metal surface. But there was definitely a vibration from inside. In that instant, something melted within her. All the previous feelings of unease and unnaturalness connected to one horrifying possibility. There was no time to hesitate. Beverly pulled out her cell phone and dialed 911. "This is an emergency. I'm at Eden Prairie Funeral Home. Please send police immediately. My grandson is still alive." Perhaps hearing her voice, William burst out of the funeral home. "Bev! What are you doing?" His voice carried obvious panic. Dr. Peterson followed behind him, his face pale as death. "William, why would you do such a thing?" William didn't answer Beverly's question. Instead, he approached the car with a fierce expression. "You're mistaken. Tommy is dead. We have the death certificate. Get back inside right now. But by then, the sound of sirens was already approaching. Police cars slid into the parking lot, cutting through the snow. When the police opened the hearse door, they found Tommy, sedated but alive. His small chest rising and falling faintly. He's alive. The paramedic's voice rang out. William tried to resist but was quickly restrained. Dr. Peterson collapsed on the spot, tearfully beginning to confess everything. At the building entrance, Jennifer suddenly broke down crying. Her voice sounded as if she were expelling 10 years' worth of fear and suffering all at once. Tommy, my Tommy. Mark stood frozen in place. His wife's scream like crying. His father being arrested. His son's survival. It all seemed too surreal to accept as reality. Beverly clutched the hand of her grandson as he was loaded into the ambulance. His small fingers weakly squeezed back. Grandma, it was cold. At Tommy's faint voice as he opened his eyes, Beverly couldn't stop her tears. However, this wasn't the end. The true story was hidden in an even deeper darkness. Jennifer's strange behavior, William's obsession, and Dr. Peterson's involvement. All these mysteries were about to be revealed. The blizzard grew stronger, continuing to paint Eden Prairie white. But no one felt the cold anymore. The confrontation with truth that was about to begin would bring a far more cutting chill. In the waiting room at Mayo Clinic, Beverly held Jennifer's trembling hands. They had just been told by the doctor that Tommy was receiving treatment in intensive care and his condition was stable. Will you tell me? At Beverly's gentle question, Jennifer slowly raised her face. The truth she had kept hidden for 10 years was about to be revealed. I won't run away anymore. Her voice trembled, but there was clear determination in it. It started soon after we were married. Jennifer's confession continued quietly but steadily. It began right after they returned from their honeymoon. William had started showing an abnormal interest in Jennifer, his son's new wife. It started with subtle physical contact. Then gradually escalated to more explicit acts. At first, I thought maybe this was normal. Jennifer's voice caught. Beverly squeezed her hands silently. But it wasn't. He was trying to completely control me. 2 months after the wedding, on a night when Mark was away on business, William broke into the house and committed his first assault. Since then, his domination had continued for over 10 years. I couldn't tell anyone, especially Mark. With tears in her eyes, Jennifer continued. He would say, "This is how fathers show love to their daughters, treating me like a child who didn't understand anything." Beverly felt her chest tighten. Behind their weekly performances of the ideal family at church, such demonic acts had been taking place. Tommy accidentally saw it. Last Thursday, when William had broken in as usual, Tommy suddenly entered the room. "Grandpa, don't make Mommy cry." In that instant, William's expression changed completely. The presence of a witness could destroy his perfect system of control. From that day on, he started to. Her words trailed off. But no further explanation was needed. William had tried to take his grandson's life to silence him. Dr. Peterson's interrogation revealed even more horrifying facts. William had paid $250,000 in hush money and requested a false death certificate. The drug administration was designed to mimic an asthma attack. However, an unexpected interaction with Tommy's regular asthma medication had thrown off the dosage calculations. According to our hospital records, this dosage shouldn't have been lethal. Dr. Peterson testified through tears. But still, I was blinded by the money. In the interrogation room, William maintained his silence until the end. However, the evidence found on his cell phone told the whole story. A diary recording his obsession with Jennifer. The murder plot against Tommy. And detailed records of years of sexual abuse. Why would Father? Mark stood dazed in the police station hallway. 10 years of abuse toward his wife. Betrayal by his father. And attempted murder of his son. The unacceptable reality threatened to crush him. It's my fault, if only I had noticed earlier. But Beverly gently placed her hand on her son's shoulder. It's no one's fault. William, he deceived all of us. Through the intensive care unit's glass, they could see Tommy sleeping with an oxygen mask. The monitor's waveform traced a regular, peaceful rhythm of breathing. Nothing is over yet, Beverly said quietly. This is just the beginning of the real battle. But this time, no one is alone. Outside the window, the snow was finally beginning to stop. The long winter night was about to break. However, this family's journey of healing had only just begun. Spring sunlight streamed through the window of the counseling room at Mayo Clinic. 3 months had passed since William's arrest, and the snow in Eden Prairie had completely melted. This is our 12th session. The trauma specialist smiled gently at Jennifer. Beverly was present too. For these 3 months, she had been giving her all to support her beloved daughter-in-law's emotional recovery. Yes, little by little. Jennifer's voice carried a hint of returning strength. Recently, I've been able to sleep at night. It was a small but significant progress. After the incident, Jennifer had suffered from severe insomnia. Seeing William's shadow in the darkness, hearing his footsteps, it had taken over 2 months for her to be freed from such terrors. Have you been able to talk with Mark? At the counselor's question, Jennifer looked down slightly. Little by little, but I still don't have the courage to tell him everything. Rebuilding the marital relationship was one of the most challenging tasks. Mark was desperately trying to understand his wife's suffering. However, the shock of learning about his father's decade-long abuse had become his own trauma. Yesterday, Mark told me, "There's no need to rush. Let's overcome this together." Jennifer's eyes moistened as she spoke these words. Beverly listened silently to their conversation. She herself had needed time to recover from the shock of discovering her husband's true nature. 40 years of marriage. All the memories they had built together. The reality that everything had been covered in extensive lies. But now, Tommy's presence was what sustained her heart. "Grandma, look." Tommy's voice rang out cheerfully as he played in the hospital courtyard after the session. Completely recovered from the drug's after effects, her grandson was running around energetically in the spring sunshine. "You've grown again." Beverly embraced her grandson tightly, as if confirming his warmth. If she hadn't heard Tommy's voice that day, the thought still chilled her heart. "Mom, about tomorrow's trial." Mark spoke quietly. William's trial was finally approaching its conclusion. "It's all right. I'll go with Jennifer." The prosecution was seeking a life sentence. Dr. Peterson had agreed to a plea deal and provided detailed testimony. Severe punishment for William was now certain. "Grandma, have Daddy and Mommy made up?" At Tommy's sudden question, Beverly momentarily lost her words. But she couldn't lie to her grandson's pure eyes. "Yes, they're both trying their best. Because they love you so much." Those words weren't a lie. Mark and Jennifer were attending couples counseling twice a week. It would still take time to rebuild their broken trust. But they were both desperately trying to meet each other halfway. "I wonder what will become of us," Beverly murmured, looking up at the sky at dusk. "One step at a time," Jennifer quietly answered. "Tommy taught me that. He said, 'Mommy, shall we walk one step at a time?'" Beverly couldn't help but smile at those words. Indeed, a long road lay ahead of them. But no one was alone anymore. The life that William had tried to take was now surely breathing in this place. Tommy's smile. Jennifer's gradually returning confidence. Mark's desperate efforts. And Beverly's own new determination. "Grandma, I'm hungry." Everyone smiled at Tommy's innocent voice. "Then let's all have dinner together," Beverly suggested, and the whole family nodded. The spring twilight slowly enveloped the town. The former nightmare was steadily becoming a thing of the past. And now, the story of this new family was beginning to move forward again, one step at a time.